There's a transition process going on for Feed the Hungry from emergency food provision to something really new and innovative, which is very exciting. This has to be the direction of travel for Feed the Hungry. We have to get beyond doing unto communities and simply providing food, but actually enabling them to be able to provide the infrastructure and resources and knowledge that will enable them to be able to look after themselves in the future and prosper and thrive and become significant.
Hello everyone and welcome to Snack on That. In today's podcast we'll be doing things about how Feed the Hungry is transforming lives in Johannesburg with the help of the President of South Africa. We'll be interviewing Elna, who is working with people with physical and mental disabilities. But first let me introduce who I'm with today, and that is our resident superhero Gavin Kibble.
Hello.
And our let's put another bright shirt on, Gwyn Williams. Borada is Welsh, for those of you who don't realise. Okay, but first, guys, do you remember VHS tapes?
Oh, Blockbuster, yeah. Going down to your Blockbuster to get a tape. I remember that.
What's Blockbuster?
Highlight of the week.
Highlight of the week, yeah. Friday evening, down there, get a nice little tape out, put it in the VHS machine.
Well, you actually went to a shop?
Went to a shop. Used to go to a shop. Yeah.
What?
Do you remember this? You're as old as us.
Yeah, I can, but maybe some of our listeners have no idea. Blockbuster, a shop. You actually got a tape. You grabbed it, took it home.
Took it home.
You had rows and rows of tapes.
What's a VHS tape?
Well, it's a bit like a cassette tape, except you probably don't remember a cassette tape either. So there you go. Magnetic tape with film on it, and we used to put it in our cassette machine, and away we go.
Have you got any VHS tapes?
I think there might still be some in the attic.
My wedding is on a cassette tape. I don't think we can play it anymore because we haven't got a cassette machine.
So if anybody's out there who'd like to donate a VHS machine to Gavin so he can see his wedding, please do so.
I was younger then.
You were younger, much younger.
Much younger.
Yes. So VHS tapes. I wonder what Elna does with that. Anyway, move on a little bit now into what I can't quite believe, and I don't think Gwyn can believe.
Absolutely not.
No, I can't believe, Gavin, that you bought an oven that didn't fit.
No, well, step back. This is like the best oven in the world. This is the sort of oven where a chicken rocks up, plucks itself, jumps in, gets cooked, and an hour and a quarter later, not only do you have the chicken, but you have the roast potatoes, you have the peas, you have all the veg as well.
Hang on. You've actually got to be able to switch it on, though.
Details, schmeetails. Okay, let's not worry about the details. The fact is, this is a state-of-the-art £10,000 oven that we needed for our brand new state-of-the-art commercial kitchen.
But it doesn't fit.
Details. What's the problem?
Okay, so just for those of you who don't know, we have bought this oven. It's on its way to us, and we've realised that it doesn't actually fit in the kitchen.
We demolished the kitchen.
We can't get through the door.
No, this is a brand new kitchen, fitted out with all the white boarding that goes on it. All the fire regulations, all the
the problem
signage.
With you, gentlemen, is you just don't think three-dimensionally, do you?
Nor do you,
No,
obviously.
absolutely not. No.
Yes, there is height, there is width, there is depth, Gav, and nobody took a bit of notice about that.
You were thinking two-dimensionally there.
Indeed. But we will get it through the door, won't we? But we're just going to have to dismantle the door to do it.
Wow.
And the frame.
And the frame, and maybe a bit of the wall.
Okay, well, thank you. More about whether we get the oven to fit in another episode. We'll tell you more.
Up, so we were showing the delivery of the...
Yeah. Is that on VHS tape?
It'll be on VHS tape and available to you for a short fee. Small fee, sorry.
Short fee. Short fee, I love it. But Gwyn, obviously you with your experience in Africa, you've seen many ovens fitted in various locations. What do you do if the oven doesn't fit in Africa?
Well, we build the oven first and then build the walls around it.
Exactly, perfect. Why didn't we do that, Gav?
We don't know how to build mud walls, mate.
Oh, okay. But talking of Africa, Gwyn, where have you been?
In South Africa, in Johannesburg.
South Africa, Johannesburg. So what were you doing in Johannesburg?
We're working in an area called Princess, which is right in the middle of Johannesburg. What we've been asked to do there is look at the whole area, which is a shanty town in the city. So people who have internally displaced people from South Africa who are looking for work in the city, but are basically living in tin huts.
Wow, so would you say these people have been forgotten?
Absolutely, yeah.
So are they, in terms of their outlook on life and things like that, What are we doing to change
Yeah,
that?
because these houses are built, they have no address, so it's very hard for them to actually register for a job because they haven't got an identifiable address for them to register to be a home owner as such, and therefore it makes it really, really difficult for them to get regular work.
So we've got a picture that's going to come up of two people in the picture with you, Gwyn. Tell us a little bit about these. I mean, forget your orange jacket, but just tell us about them.
Yeah, well, I love to have a bit of colour on my life. Basically, what we did, we were asked to provide them with food. A lot of them hadn't gone with food for a long time, or living on scraps. So we decided to provide food for about 450 families, which we have continued to do, which has transformed their outlooks from suddenly them knowing not what to do. I call it people walking nowhere, because they have nothing to do or nowhere to go in terms of work, hope, or success. And that was just a small bit of light for them. And then we started talking to them, well, what else can we do?
And these particular people, I know Gav would be interested in this because of your business acumen, Gav. What sort of things would you started to look at starting a business?
Small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. They're internally displaced people, so we actually started to talk to them and find out who they were as people, and where they came from and what abilities they had. So one of the things we did was actually transform this community centre, which had been falling apart, which was acting like a nursery for the kids so they could go and look for work. We painted, decorated, but we said we're not going to get contractors in. We're going to see if there's people within that community that can actually help us with refurbing it.
Right.
So we found that some were electricians, some were decorators, some were builders, joiners. And so this is amazing, this is great.
Brilliant.
And they've started to volunteer for themselves in refurbishing this community centre.
So people helping people. Gav, just bring you in, Gav. What do you think that we need to be providing into that? I mean, we've started it, but it looks like it's going to take off.
Yeah, I think for these sorts of things you need finance and you need expertise, don't you? So you need to bring in people who can see the bigger picture, who know how to run maybe a bakery, know how to set up a small business, and bring some sort of training skills, that kind of thing, into this environment. Give people the opportunity.
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot of skilled people in this place, but they actually need people who actually know how to run business and how to create business, and that seems to be the thing that Gwyn has brought into this space.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and that was the eureka moment, because we said, why don't we do a transformation centre? And you're thinking, what is a transformation centre?
I am thinking, what's a transformation centre?
What's a transformation centre?
What's a transformation centre, Gwyn?
So what we want to do is actually start a training centre and a community area that they could actually meet and actually discuss and develop ideas together. So having workshop spaces, training spaces, and workshops that they can develop their skills, develop also financial skills, business skills, in order to give them the actual tools to be able to be not only employable but self-help themselves.
And this idea of a transformation centre you've tried in Njanja, isn't it, in Zimbabwe, where you're actually bringing together local farmers, local people, where you're upskilling them, but you're also going to give them access to finance to be able to enhance the agriculture, the things that they're growing. So it's becoming a little bit of a proven model in what you're trying out in these sorts of countries?
Absolutely. This will be the fourth centre that we're actually developing. This one is more of an urban one. The other ones are more rural.
Opposite of urban. Rural. Thank you.
Not urban. Out of the country, green leaves and all that sort of thing.
So in terms of that, okay, so you get some good ideas. You go into the urban place or displace, as many of them have been, and suddenly the president gets wind of it. What he's the
Yeah.
president of South Africa. What's happened there? How did that happen?
You might remember in the news there was a huge fire in Johannesburg of an office block that had been full of residential people that had been living there. That caught fire, and a huge amount of people died in that fire. So as a team, we actually set up some stores and provided soup and food for those who were suffering at that time. The actual president met our team on the ground there.
Wow.
And asked who we were and what we did, and asked his team to say, give them my phone number or my contact. So we thought, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what presidents do. So anyway, they
do with Gav.
Yeah. And then, so we got the call.
Okay.
So they said, well, we'd like to talk to you more about how we can work together.
So the president's representative in that particular area is working with you now to develop this transformation centre?
Yeah, so we actually put together a proposal of what that might look like, and he goes, love it, that's great, and we'll give you the land to build on it.
That's fantastic. So there's going to be more news about that coming into the future. What are you most excited about? What are you most excited about?
Well, I think there's a transition process going on for Feed the Hungry from emergency food provision to something really new and innovative, which is very exciting. Maybe you'd like to kind of articulate on that from what you're seeing in the 4 transformation centres. How is that different? How's that the next big thing for Feed the Hungry?
By the way, just for big words, articulate means to expand on it. It's not a truck. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just checking.
So what we've been finding is that we've been feeding hundreds of thousands of kids and being involved in communities, whether it's disaster relief. And we're starting to think, well, what's the future for these people? Are they food dependent? Are we dependent as a charity in just giving them food? Can we do more? So in places like Nkwanya up in Uganda and in Janjo, we're actually developing programs that actually not only providing food, but providing them the skills to live. So whether it's the farming skills, in Nkwanya, we're dealing with families, about 5,000 families. So we've actually planted 1,200 acres of food for them to actually start developing a resource for the community. So that is now bringing new businesses, whether it's farming businesses, irrigation businesses, whatever. So you're actually starting to build a lifestyle of businesses that are working together in the community.
I think that's also true. We're looking at this internationally, but domestically we're seeing the same things going on. And this idea of transformation centres and places where we get away from doing unto communities and have communities doing unto themselves is probably the core of where we're going at the moment, not just in places like Uganda and Zimbabwe and South Africa, but even in the pantries that we're working in places like Lillington, in Coventry Food Bank, which are projects that we're invested in. We're trying to take people away from the fact that we are a food provider and actually provide them with the resources to take them out of the crisis that brought them there in the first place. And this has to be the direction of travel for Feed the Hungry. We have to get beyond doing unto communities and simply providing food, but actually enabling them to be able to provide the infrastructure and resources and knowledge that will enable them to be able to look after themselves in the future and prosper and thrive and become significant.
That's great. We're heading towards self-sustainability and enablement and empowerment for people for their own lives.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's transforming their hope for the future and for the future of their kids. You actually see that change in their thinking from being hopeless to actually having dreams.
It's a hand up rather than a hand out, Chris.
Exactly. Fantastic. And with a hand up, with the transformation centres that we talked about now, we're now going to see an example of that in action in Zimbabwe through an interview with Elna.
Well, it's wonderful, Elna, to have you here in the UK with us.
Thank you.
So much of the time we're out in Zimbabwe with you in Harare, with a feeding programme For how many children now?
Close to 18,000
18,000.
learners on a daily basis, every school day.
So every school day we feed them with this food of...
Yes, rice, rice and soy, fortified meal. This feeds about 6 kids.
And this is packed in the UK and Italy through doing events around the country.
Yes.
And it's great to be able to have you here to tell us some stories about some of the kids that are receiving this food.
Our feeding program, Gwyn, as you know, is school-based. So we actually cook this food working with volunteers from the community. And we have a few that we give as dry rations because
Right.
that's the only decent meal that these kids have a day.
I've seen it on the ground that they love this food so much.
They do. They do love this food very much. I mean, they scratch the bottom for everything. They like it.
And I've seen the fact that some of the kids, their alternative is one little square piece of bread, which I can see them running, throwing the bread away and then eating the food.
Oh yes, they will throw away the little piece of bread and run for the rice.
Yeah.
They like the rice.
So much.
So we're actually telling parents now, don't even bother giving them that bread, which is processed white bread. It has no food value, but this food is so valuable. It's very high in nutrition. Every day they receive this meal, they will be all right for the day.
So you bought some gifts for me as well, which is amazing.
Yes, I did, Gwyn, because you remember one of our feeding centers actually caters for disabled children. You have been there, you were there.
Yeah.
One of the high locations. So they sent me with these gifts to you to let you know that even though they are disabled, doesn't mean that they can't do anything in life. So they've been going around picking thrown away video tapes. Then they take that inside and roll it out, and they're making like this is a bag. This is a handbag.
Wow.
And
the silver, that's crisp packets.
yeah, they're going around picking up and throwing away crisp packets, which is also environmental friendly. Because they are picking up paper that's thrown away everywhere and making out these things. Like this is like a hat. Somebody can put this like, not sure. But also this is also a sun hat.
Yeah.
And also these bags here.
Yeah, this
All
is
these
wonderful.
things, they can find these things locally, and they're coming up with, they're designing these bags.
So the children, some of them were blind children and some had hearing impairment.
Especially crippled,
Yeah.
and those that can't talk, even those that are they're like epileptic. There are many different disablements that they have, but they can use their hands.
Yeah.
Even if they can't talk, but they can use their hands, and this is what they're coming up with.
That's incredible. That's really amazing. And we're actually going to be looking at how we can actually sell these online.
Yeah.
To actually, so that the money goes back to them.
Yes, that would be wonderful, because they are working together as a group.
Yeah.
They're encouraging each other. So it's a feeding center.
Yeah.
And now they've begun to do this, because one thing that we've talked about, Gwyn, is that we don't just feed people. We want them to move from dependence syndrome to where they can be self-sustained.
So it's a great story, isn't it? How these disabled children, whatever, and families were so isolated in society and shunned. And now, because of the feeding program, they're coming together and being a community, and now having purpose as well.
Yes, purpose, and now they realize that there's somebody who cares out there, and but we don't want them to continue just feeding us. We want to also to rise up to the occasion and begin to do things for ourselves. So as they come together, they are sharing ideas, and they are looking around to see what is readily available. Instead of crying about what we don't have, let's use what we have, what is easily accessible. Like these things are being thrown away because old videotapes, and instead of just leaving them lying around and it's actually litter, and they're picking it up and cleaning the environment and then coming up with these things.
That's great, and that's inside Harare in the city.
This is Harare in the city, yes,
Yeah.
one of the actually high density suburbs.
And then we talked about Ninjanja as well, haven't we? About how we've been equipping the community there to do agricultural projects.
That's we're working with the Njanja community, where we are setting up Foundations for Farming Model Center. And the idea is to encourage the community to work with what we have, encouraging them to do conservation agriculture, working with what we have, which is normally with just your hoe and your piece of land. And then you make out your plant stations, which you can manage instead of spreading yourself too thin over a hectare. You can just prepare a plot and then prepare your plant stations, like in the case of a drought, which you can manage maybe to even water, and at least you'll be able to feed your family.
So hopefully we'll try and develop things like fish farming and bees and
Bee farming,
etc. to go with that as well.
in other crops that don't need a lot of water. We want to encourage the community, because all along they've always been doing maize and maize and maize every time. But we want to encourage them to also do things like sorghum. They are not used to, but we have to experiment with what can work with what we have and our weather conditions. So also bee farming, fish farming, or other fruits like maybe macadamia, almonds, that don't need a whole lot of water, instead of just crying about the drought. Like right now there's a dry spell, and our crops have withered, and there's no hope that they will be revived. But we want to see what can we do in the meantime.
Yeah, and I've seen the photographs the women have been showing 2 weeks ago that everything was thriving and green, and 2 weeks later, because of the drought, everything has gone yellow.
Withered, yes.
So it's great that we can provide them with the food whilst there is drought, and then encourage them to keep on going through these difficult times until we adjust the farming programs to suit the changing climate. And it looks really good that people are being self-motivated to be able to help themselves, even with their disabilities and even with the difficulties. So thank you very much for coming in today. It's great to see you, and look forward to seeing you on site in a couple of months' time as well.
Thank you very much, Gwyn.
Thanks for Elna for telling us so much about what's happening out in Zimbabwe. Glenn, what's your response to that interview about what's happening with Elna?
We're seeing, again, a transformation of our project managers working towards developing programs in the community where you see more self-help of actually communities working with these disabled kids to actually develop programs for them to have a hope in the future. And in developing these VHS type programs. So it's,
I mean, she's obviously got an amazing thing going on there. Is leadership a key thing for us in looking for people that can bring about self-sustainability in these communities?
Yeah, absolutely. People can facilitate ideas, and so you're not looking for project managers. You're actually equipping them to project manage themselves.
So Elna is also the leader of a number of churches out there. So what is the importance, do you think, of the church being invested in this kind of project in places like Zimbabwe?
The whole idea of being church is being church in the community, and that means being involved in life and community life, in actually looking at how we can actually transform communities and bring them back to life.
In many ways, she models what Jesus did by being out in community for 3 years and actually connecting with and dealing with the life issues of the individuals that he met. Elna's doing the same sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thanks, gents. Well, next episode, we'll be looking at Gavin's coast-to-coast walk, a heartbreaking situation in Zambia with crops dying in front of the eyes of the women growing them. And finally, I believe we're going to be talking about a 16th century aphrodisiac. More of that next time.
Can't wait, Chris.